Have you ever wanted to write a novel? Writing a book has been a life goal for me since I was a kid. After many false starts and unfinished chapter ones, I've finally taken the plunge to write a book that's been developing in my mind for the past few years. Hi, my name is Xandra, and in this video, we'll be discussing how to develop a story idea into a real novel. Sometimes an idea isn't exactly what we want, so we have to reshape it. And honestly, after praying about it a lot, the Holy Spirit helped me recreate the story in a way that makes me excited to write and share it with others. If you're in the same boat as me and want to write your first novel, these are the steps I'm taking to make sure I actually finish this project. Step 1. Plan your novel by understanding what you want to say. When I first had the idea for this book, I kept a Google Doc that included a one-sentence summary of the book. With this, I asked some guiding philosophical questions about the themes I want to explore in the story. One example of this is, why are we really here on Earth? I also included a few guiding Bible verses to enrich the philosophy behind the book. A key verse is Proverbs 28 verse 10, which says that those who lead good people along an evil path will fall into their own trap, but the honest will inherit good things. I see storytelling as a vehicle for sharing ideas that can change the way we see the world. So knowing the underlying themes helps me to adjust the plot and not be too tied to an outcome. Keeping this in mind helped me massively reconstruct the plot into something I love and I'm still open to reshaping as I draft. Step 2. If you're struggling with plotting, adopt the snowflake method. I learned how to plot using the snowflake method by following Kindleprenneur's article in the description below. This method is great if you're not interested in the more formulaic hero's journey or you have a complex storyline in mind. The first step in the snowflake method is to craft a one-sentence summary of your novel idea. This helps you get a clear idea of the story before you start fleshing it out. The summary should highlight the main conflict or event and the goals of the main character. My novel has three main characters that have no ties with each other, so I focus on the main event and how each character views this event. So my one-sentence summary is, across the world, murmurs of alien visitations in new worlds spark uncertainty and curiosity. Every book is different, and this is just the first glimpse into the real story. So the second step is to write a one-paragraph summary. Here, I take a closer look at the story from the eyes of the three main characters, as well as the event that ties them all together. Here you'll need to write about your main characters, their world, what initial event starts the book for them, the main conflicts they face, the turning points, and the endings for each of them. You don't need to have it all figured out, but the summary will help you understand where the story is going. Step 3 is to create a character synopsis. This is where you write a brief summary of the main characters in the book. This includes their goals, who they are, the conflicts they face, and their sphere of influence. Knowing more about your characters helps you write a story that is more complex and interesting. This step helps the book move from just a series of events unfolding to understanding how the people within the story influence the outcomes. Write as much as possible about each character, and if you're struggling to understand what you want for a character, journal a bit about what that character's point of view is like. Write about their day-to-day life and just see what is it that they like to do, what is it that they hate. Doing this helped me eliminate a character that seemed really good for the novel, but was ultimately going to be a drag. I instead added elements of that character into another main character's story, which helped me further enrich the plot. Now, on to step 4. This is a one-page description of the novel. To write this, break the novel into 5 paragraphs where you set up the story, then the turning points and initial conflicts. A major complication and escalation in the story which leads to big choices made that then end in the resolution. Writing this helped me understand that the novel will be a duology rather than a standalone book. If you don't have the whole story fleshed out by now, that's okay. Write as much as possible and do some plot and character sketches to understand how to fill out the story more. I haven't finished all of these yet, but the next steps in the snowflake method are to review and refine your character descriptions to make sure each character is important for the story. Create a 4-page outline to further zoom into your storyline. You can do these by further elaborating on each paragraph in your one-page description. Create character charts that help you understand the depths of each character, and you can do this in Google Sheets and fill out the charts. I did this and it helped me understand the characters' intrinsic motivations, their life histories, their flaws, their strengths, their relationships, and the goals in the story versus what actually happens to them. Next, break down each story scene to understand how each scene moves the story and each character throughout the novel. Then, gather your novel chapter list. I did this in Google Sheets by writing an outline of a chapter at a time. It's become an iterative process where I draft using the chapter outline, then move on to the next chapter and outline based on what happened in the previous chapter. It's helped me be more engaged in the creative process and actually see progress. The final step in this method is to write the first draft. You can skip or combine the previous steps by outlining a bit as you draft so you don't feel stalled if you don't have the full story immediately. I've been drafting as I plot to help me understand I don't need every detail figured out when I'm outlining. Step 3 of this process is to enhance the plot by asking why your story starts where it does. I was struggling to finish plotting using the snowflake method, so I used the plot questions from Ruta Sepetty's book called You the Story to understand what routes I'm taking as I write. These questions are especially good if you're writing a more character-driven novel like I am. The first question covers the inciting incident by asking, what event sets the plot in motion? I answered each question using the perspective of my main characters. Since they have no real connections in this book, each is basically living their own world and will experience the unfolding global events differently. The second question highlights the prize, which asks, what does your main character want? So this is the goal your main character is driven toward due to the unfolding events in the novel. The third question covers the strategy by considering, what does your character decide to do in order to get what they want? So, to get what they want, what decisions do your characters make, even if it could lead to terrible outcomes? The fourth question brings in the conflict and asks, who are some of the people working against your character? This doesn't necessarily have to be about people, it can also be about situations, ideas, or even themselves. The fifth question covers the stakes, which asks, what will be the consequence if the plan does not work? Sometimes the consequence isn't so obvious. It can be subtle, like an internal fear. The sixth question asks about the bleakest moment in your book. So it asks, what happens to make things look hopeless? This could be a turning point in the story, or perhaps the character gets betrayed or their decisions lead to terrible outcomes. The seventh question asks, what does your character learn about themselves, others, or life? This is key for getting a sense of character development while reading. By getting into your character's head, you get a better sense of who they're becoming throughout the story and who they will be at the end of the story. The eighth question asks, what does your character do because of what they've learned? So these are the decisions that are made by each character due to what they learned in the previous step and who they become. It's basically asking, what is the action that leads them to where they are at the end of the story. The ninth question asks, in what way does your character need to grow emotionally? This helps in understanding how to shape your character's development. The final question is about the backstory, asking, what is haunting your character as the story begins? This helps to get an idea of where the story starts for the characters because it's a part of the longer life they've probably lived so far. Now on to step 4, which shows us that spreadsheets are great for a bird's eye view. Following the advice of an article I read on plotting, I created a spreadsheet where I created a quick overview of the characters, the world building, the scenes, as well as the novel outline. Deciding to write from 3 unrelated perspectives and third person omniscient means keeping track of each character's storyline is key to not let the story become too overwhelming. So I use ChatGPT to generate the columns for the spreadsheet according to my needs. In the character sheet, for instance, I outline the characters' roles, how I'm writing them, their backstory, their goals, their fears, and more. The world building sheet will outline the history of the cultures, the people, their goals, and the mysteries to them as a culture. The chapter outline helps me keep track of the mini plot within each chapter and which point of view I'm writing from. Each of the main characters in this book are unrelated, so they'll probably never cross paths. So for this sheet, I outline the chapter setting, the opening scene, main conflict and event, and the theme and the ending of the chapter. The final part of this video is step 5, where we start drafting before we even finish plotting and outlining. I spent a few months stuck on how to finish fleshing out the plot with the snowflake method, so after building the plot with the questions from Ruta Sepetty's book, I decided to just start writing with what I knew so far. Having a roadmap helps immensely, but I'm learning I don't need every single detail outlined beforehand. It allows me to leave room for surprises and makes the writing process more enjoyable. Even if you don't have the time to write every day, writing in 30-minute bursts as much as possible throughout your week will help you see progress quickly. In future videos, I'll discuss more about putting together mood boards for the book because I think it's going to be helpful to understand what you want to show when you write. But if you don't have one yet, just start writing and that will help you understand what you'll even want in the mood boards. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. I share spoken word, art, tech, and lifestyle content from a Christian perspective. Thank you for watching. And if you've made it this far, what's something you want to do differently with your book or writing project?